matter what he says or does, I will vote for Donald Trump.
Well, if he said the N-word, would you still vote for him?
It wouldn't be right, but I would still vote for him.
Yeah, see, I don't give a chicken fried fuck that farmers in Arkansas are losing their family farms. I don't care. I literally couldn't care less. You could not pay me to care. Begging for a handout is the most socialist thing you could do, and who do you think is going to fund it? That's right, blue states. Those crime-riddled, dilapidated cities that you want to send the National Guard into are the very people funding the bailouts that you're begging for. And I don't see why my tax dollars should go to supporting your fucking welfare babies. I'm sorry, I don't care. I also don't care that your homes are getting ripped apart by tornadoes or washed away in floods. I don't care that your children are going to suffer measles, smallpox, and mumps because you don't believe that science and vaccine works. I don't care that you're seeing the worst storms ever because, again, you don't believe that science is real or that global warming, a globally accepted fact, actually exists. I don't care. I don't care that your wife lost her job because she was a DEI hire.
Okay, so this is a screenshot of men marching in Arkansas. They are masked. They are, clothed, I guess that's a good thing, in black and red. They are doing Nazi salutes, much like Elon Musk. They are, as much as we can tell through, the masks and, little bits of clothing not being there and everything else, they are white, and they are literally carrying flags with the Nazi swastika on them. This video was taken by a dude who was following them in a car while they were walking and yelling things and stuff. I cut that out. But you have to ask yourself, why are we allowing this hate in our country?
So, Arkansas, the natural state, and the home of the biggest I told you so moment in modern politics. These are the same folks who said they'd vote for their guy even if he said the worst things imaginable, who demanded bailouts while screaming about socialism, who preached independence but now have their hands out. Now, their farms are collapsing, their workers are deported, their governor is begging daddy for federal handouts after years of trashing government assistance. And the response from the rest of us? I hope you have the day you voted for. This isn't tragedy. This is arithmetic. Welcome back to Mind Mirror. Let's get into it.
I'm telling you. Over a dozen countries in Europe have actually outlawed the Nazi symbol and Nazism. Now, the president signed an executive order making Antifa a terrorist organization. Antifa stands for anti-fascist. Fascism came to rise right before World War II and stuff. Mussolini, Hitler, stuff like that. People like that. They are fascists. Anti-fascism is anti-Hitler, anti-Nazi, bad people. And Trump tried to make them a terrorist organization.
Wait, so anti-fascists got labeled as terrorists. Let that sink in for a second. Anti-fascism isn't an organization. It's literally just being opposed to fascism. You know, the ideology that gave us Hitler and Mussolini? The one we fought a whole world war against? And here's what's wild. The FBI had to publicly state that Antifa doesn't qualify as a terrorist organization because it's not even an organization. It's an idea. But actual Nazis, marching with swastikas in Arkansas, doing literal Nazi salutes like Elon Musk at the inauguration? Nothing. No executive order. No domestic terrorism label. So let me get this straight. Opposing Nazis makes you a terrorist. But being a Nazi is fine? The math ain't mathing. And the fact that people still defend this? Wild.
The problem is that Antifa is not an actual organization. It's an ideology, basically. It's a thought. And it does not qualify as a terrorist organization. And the FBI was put on the spot last week by Congress about Antifa being a terrorist organization and the greatest threat to domestic terrorism. And that is from Trump's FBI.
We have some news right now. Even Donald Trump's own supporters are coming out against him after he put out one of the most vile and horrific statements about Rob and Michelle Reiner following their gruesome murder. All across Truth Social this morning, Trump's own supporters are demanding that Trump take down his vile post, arguing that his post is not representative of their views. It's pretty stunning to see. Sir, Mr. President, I love you. I support you 100%. I do not support this post. Highly inappropriate, and it puts us in their box, tacky and tasteless. Not classy. Expect better of you, Mr. President. Let's take this down. They have passed. The left celebrated Charlie Kirk's death. We mourn Rob Reiner and his wife's were not the same. These are all people with verified Truth Social check marks. These are all people who are very close, big Trump supporters on the platform. And for every one of those comments, there are so many more that I just can't show right now. It's pretty significant. And here's the deal, folks. What Trump said today should never be sane-washed. It was a vile and horrific post, and no media should sane-wash it. I won't. Spread the word. Follow for more.
Okay, this is actually stunning. Even his own supporters on Truth Social are telling the president to take down his vile post about Rob and Michelle Reiner after their deaths. Not classy. Expect better of you, Mr. President. And look, I'm not here to same-wash this behavior. What he said was disgusting. But the fact that his own base is finally pushing back, that's something. Because for years, we've watched the cruelest, most dehumanizing things imaginable get said, and his supporters cheered every single time. But apparently, mocking someone's death crosses the line. Here's my advice. If you're just now realizing that leadership requires basic human decency, you weren't paying attention. Or you were okay with it when it was directed at people you didn't like. Either way, welcome to the realization the rest of us had years ago.
Dems are screaming, Trump added his name to the Kennedy Center. And once again, you're wrong. Let's talk about it. Trump's name was added to the Kennedy Center, but the name change had nothing to do with Trump himself. On December 18th, 2025, the Kennedy Center board, not Trump, voted to rename it the Donald J. Trump and John F. Kennedy Memorial Center for the Performing Arts, citing his contributions. Sergio Gore proposed it at the board meeting, and the board unanimously voted for it. Trump's name was added to the building the next day. The Kennedy family opposed it as illegal. Critics say congressional approval is required per a 1964 law, and Rep. Joyce Beatty filed a lawsuit to remove Trump's name. The spokesperson of the Kennedy Center, Roma Davari, said the vote was unanimous, honoring Trump's rescue of the center from ruin, and later defended meeting procedures against lawsuit claims. How did he rescue the center from ruin, you ask? He rescued it from financial decline by pushing private fundraising, corporate sponsorships, and operational reforms, reducing reliance on taxpayer bailouts and stabilizing its budget. Did the name change? Yes. Did Trump have anything to do with it? No. Be sure to follow along for updates and tell me what you think in the comments.
So the Kennedy Center added the president's name to the building, and it wasn't even his doing? The board voted unanimously? Look, I'm skeptical, because we've seen this pattern before. Loyalists make decisions that benefit their guy, and then everyone pretends it was organic. But let's say it's true. Let's say the board really did vote to honor him for saving the center from ruin through private fundraising. Here's the thing. The Kennedy family is opposing it. They're calling it illegal under a 1964 law that requires congressional approval. And honestly, when the family whose name is literally on the building says you're overstepping, maybe listen. This isn't about partisanship. It's about respecting institutional norms and legal procedures. You can't just slap your name on national monuments because your buddies voted for it. But then again, we've seen how institutional norms get treated these days, so I'm not holding my breath.
We are one giant leap closer this holiday season to the first federal judge ruling that Donald Trump's Department of Justice is vindictively prosecuting somebody, warranting the dismissal of a criminal complaint, a criminal indictment. If this happens with Judge Crenshaw in Tennessee involving Armando Abrego Garcia, it'll open the floodgates for other judges handling other vindictive prosecution cases like the one against former FBI Director James Comey and Letitia James, New York Attorney General. But first, Armando Abrego Garcia. Now, a few days ago, I reported on Judge Zinnes in Maryland, who holds the life and liberty of Armando Abrego Garcia in her hands, who had him in her courtroom, who is about to rule about whether he has the right to have habeas corpus petition granted and therefore released permanently from continued prosecution or persecution by the Trump administration. But in Tennessee, the issue is his criminal indictment on human trafficking charges, which were made up by the Trump administration. Every judge that's looked at it so far has said so. And a couple of months ago, in October or so, Judge Crenshaw, in his order, said, I think we have the makings of vindictive prosecution. At the very least, there's something called burden shifting. If the defendant makes a what's called a prima facie case, a preliminary basic case, that they're being vindictively prosecuted in this case for a defense, as an affirmative defense, the burden shifts to the government to prove that they're not vindictively prosecuting. And then if they have evidence that they're not vindictively prosecuting, they carry their burden, then it shifts back to the defendant. Right now, the judge has already ruled that the Armando Abrego side has already presumptively shown the prima facie case for vindictiveness, whether presumed or actual. If it's actual, game over. It could even be presumed vindictiveness. And the reason for that, and you're on Legal AF, by the way, take a moment, hit that free subscribe button, help us get to 2 million. The reason for that is Judge Crenshaw said, I saw the video of Todd Blanche on Fox News, and it looks to me like he is retaliating against Abrego Garcia because he's won in his cases in front of Judge Zinnes in Maryland all the way up to the United States Supreme Court. And so they had no choice, quote unquote, but to bring the indictment and criminal case in Tennessee.
Vindictive prosecution. That's the claim here, that the DOJ is going after people because they won politically or legally, not because they actually committed crimes. And you know what? The judge is taking it seriously. Judge Crenshaw said he saw the Deputy Attorney General on Fox News basically admitting they're retaliating against this guy because he kept winning his cases. That's not how justice is supposed to work, at all. You don't get to weaponize the legal system because someone embarrassed you. That's authoritarianism 101. And if this case gets dismissed on vindictive prosecution grounds, it opens the floodgates, because suddenly every politically motivated case, and there are a lot of them right now, becomes vulnerable. Here's the lesson. When you turn the justice system into a revenge machine, it delegitimizes the entire institution, and that hurts everyone. Left, right, center. So yeah, this matters, and people should be watching closely.
Yeah, see, I don't give a chicken fried fuck that farmers in Arkansas are losing their family farms. I don't care. I literally couldn't care less. You could not pay me to care. Begging for a handout is the most socialist thing you could do, and who do you think is going to fund it? That's right, blue states. Those crime-riddled, dilapidated cities that you want to send the National Guard into are the very people funding the bailouts that you're begging for, and I don't see why my tax dollars should go to supporting your fucking welfare babies. I'm sorry, I don't care. I also don't care that your homes are getting ripped apart by tornadoes or washed away in floods. I don't care that your children are going to suffer measles, smallpox, and mumps because you don't believe that science and vaccine works. I don't care that you're seeing the worst storms ever because, again, you don't believe that science is real or that global warming, a globally accepted fact, actually exists. I don't care. I don't care that your wife lost her job because she was a DEI hire. I don't care that your mail-order bride got ripped away from her children and deported back to her country because you thought for some odd reason you were the exception to their hate. I don't care that cattle ranches are being closed because nobody will import American beef on the account they got rid of the FDA and they're specifically boycotting red states. I don't care that 3 different whiskey manufacturers have filed bankruptcy in the month of July alone, costing America 30,000 jobs because people, again, are specifically boycotting products from red states. I don't care. I don't care that American farmers can't find American citizens to work long hours for shit pay because y'all capitalized on indentured servitude off the backs of illegal immigrants. I don't care. I don't care that it's happening to you because you didn't care until it happened to you. So I don't care that it's happening to you. I'm actually glad. I hope you have the day you fucking voted for. And I pray that the blue states do a soft secession, that we stop paying federal taxes indefinitely so you can see the reality that you guys are America's welfare babies. We told you this was going to happen. They wrote a 900-page manifesto that this was going to happen. We read it. We told you to read it, and you said it was fake news. No. You need to have the life you voted for, and I don't fucking care how much you suffer because you deserve it. This is what voting with hate gets you. You didn't just vote for this shit. You made cardboard cutouts. You made AI memes. You put on little red hats and boasted how proud you were to vote for this. You do not get a bailout. You do not get sympathy. And you don't even get the concept of a thought or a fucking prayer. Please have the day you voted for.
I don't care. I hope you have the day you voted for. Okay, I feel this. I really do. Because here's the reality. These people didn't just vote. They made memes. They wore the hats. They mocked everyone who warned them. And now their farms are failing. Their wives are losing jobs. Their mail-order brides are getting deported and they're shocked. You voted for cruelty. You got cruelty. Congratulations. But here's where I'll push back slightly. Being as callous as they were doesn't make us better. It just makes us the same. So, yeah, I get the anger, I get the frustration, but if we want to actually win these people over, or at least stop them from doing this again, we can't just abandon them. We can hold them accountable and advocate for better policies. Both can be true. But first, they need to acknowledge they were wrong. Until then, they're on their own.
Let's talk about Minnesota and fraud, because now many on the right are calling for the arrest of Governor Tim Walz over this fraud scheme in Minnesota. But it doesn't actually pass the smell test. Now, to preface this, all fraud is bad. Whether in Minnesota or anywhere else, anyone committing fraud should be arrested, indicted, and prosecuted. And now there's a surge of federal officers heading to Minnesota to investigate fraud allegations. But this is nothing new. In fact, back in 2022, the Biden Department of Justice actually prosecuted a whole host of Minnesota residents for fraud. There was actually a $250 million scheme that was uncovered by the Biden Department of Justice where the federal government accused 47 people of stealing cash meant to help feed needy kids in a COVID fraud scheme. Those people were indicted in 2022. At the same time, since January, Donald Trump has actually pardoned a whole host of folks convicted of fraud. And it wasn't just pardons. They don't have to pay back restitution. For example, Todd and Julie Chrisley, convicted of 12 counts of bank fraud. $17.8 million in restitution, they won't have to pay back. And that's why this all, to me, doesn't really pass the smell test. And it really just seems like a political hit job on Tim Walz more than anything else. And I'd be saying this if it was the other party doing this too, by the way. If you're going to care about fraud, you got to care about fraud across the board. What's happening in Minnesota, the investigations into potential fraud, it's not a new thing. It's not a Biden cover-up. It happened under Biden, actually. And it's not just happening in Minnesota. People have been indicted for fraud across the country. I remember working on cases like this in South Florida when I was an attorney. And if the Trump administration really cared about fraud, we wouldn't be pardoning those convicted of fraud. It's that simple. Spread the word, follow for more.
So, the administration pardoned people convicted of fraud, while simultaneously sending federal agents to Minnesota to investigate fraud? The hypocrisy is suffocating. Todd and Julie Chrisley, convicted of 12 counts of bank fraud, $17.8 million in restitution, pardoned. They don't have to pay a dime. But Minnesota residents accused of stealing COVID relief funds, full investigation, federal pressure, political hit job on Tim Walz. Here's the thing, fraud is bad, period. If people in Minnesota committed fraud, prosecute them. But you can't pardon your buddies and then pretend you care about justice. It's selective enforcement, and it makes the entire system look corrupt. So to anyone still defending law and order credentials here, please, save it.
Good evening. I would like to hear from some Arkansas farmers tonight, or farmers from anywhere, because what we've just heard is that the Arkansas farmers are going to get bailed out. Basically, after having lost their markets to sell their products because of everything that's going on with our trade wars and trade negotiations, a lot of farmers in Arkansas are going under. I think the number I saw was like a third of them. So Sarah Huckabee Sanders, or Governor Sanders and President Trump apparently had a conversation, and Arkansas farmers are going to get a bailout. So what I want to know is that what you want? Do you want to exist from bailout to bailout, or do you want a market for your products? So if you're a farmer and you do happen to catch this, please drop your thoughts in your comments. Also, if you know a farmer and you're watching this, share it with them. I want to hear their thoughts. I want to hear what you have to say about it. Because for me, it doesn't seem like a good plan to make a living to have to live from bailout to bailout because government policy is in the way of your ability to sell your product.
Arkansas's farmers getting bailed out again, from bailout to bailout, like clockwork. And the question here is perfect. Do you want to exist from bailout to bailout, or do you want a market for your products? Because that's the real issue, right? These bailouts don't solve the problem. They just delay the inevitable. Tariffs destroyed their markets. China went to Brazil. Those relationships aren't coming back. So you can keep throwing money at farmers, but unless you fix the underlying trade issues, they're screwed. And here's the kicker. These same farmers voted for the policies that created this mess. They cheered the tariffs. They believed the promises. Now they're dependent on government handouts, the exact thing they claim to hate. It's tragic, but it's also predictable. And at some point, you have to ask, when will the lesson stick?
Anyway, have a good day.
Oh dear. So the governor of Arkansas, which is Sarah Huckabee Sanders, also known as Aunt Lydia, is begging the big bad federal government for federal assistance after storms ravaged her state, which makes sense. It's what they're meant to do. However, it's the same woman who's been riding the MAGA train preaching that states should handle their own shit, until, of course, her own state is hit by storms, and suddenly it's Daddy Trump, can you cut me a check? But you can't spend all year talking tough about independence and bootstraps, then come crawling to DC like it's FEMA's bake sale and you forgot your fucking wallet. But the MAGA logic here is wild. They're all, we don't need the feds unless it's money or roads or disaster relief or literally anything that costs more than $3 and a prayer. Here's the thing, Sarah. If you're gonna cosplay as Frontier Barbie, you might want to get out your fucking toolbox. I just love pointing out the MAGA hypocrisy. Like, they're absolutely more than happy to watch states like California get fucked over and denied federal assistance, but when it's their own states, they come out with their hands open, begging for money. I love this.
Sarah Huckabee Sanders, Aunt Lydia, begging the federal government for help after storms ravaged Arkansas. The same woman who spent years preaching state independence and bootstraps. The same one riding the MAGA train saying states should handle their own problems. But the second disaster hits, hands out. Cap in hand. This is the playbook in a nutshell. Rugged individualism until you need help. Then it's all hands out. And look, disaster relief is what the federal government is supposed to do. I'm not against helping Arkansas, but you can't spend years attacking California when they need wildfire aid, then turn around and demand the same help without a shred of self-awareness. That's not principle, that's opportunism. And if we're going to have a functional country, we need leaders who actually believe in the systems they're using, not just when it benefits them.
But my question is, if we're nice to these commodities farmers, if we publicly advocate for their welfare and their well-being, are they suddenly going to do the same for us? Are they going to leave women and their reproductive freedoms alone? Are they going to leave trans people alone? Are they going to stop politicizing the teaching of Black history? Are they going to suddenly realize that, hey, maybe people shouldn't be black-bagged and snatched off the streets over suspicions about their immigration status? Because let me tell you, up until now, these people have supported the cruelest policies directed at the most marginalized people in our country. But now that the policies that were very clearly articulated on the campaign trail are affecting them, we're supposed to make space in our hearts and minds for them. And mind you, like, in my heart of hearts, right, I think that if Trump was going to wage this trade war that would have such dire impacts on working class Americans like these commodities farmers, then yeah, he should probably pay them. But my heart of hearts is a little distracted by the fact that Trump is threatening to deploy the military on the streets of America's safest cities, and the fact that his Supreme Court just said it's okay for police to profile Latin Americans, and the constant barrage of attacks on literally 1% of Americans to hold space for the commodities farmer who was told by Trump that Trump was going to wage this trade war, but only heard that he was going to hurt people that they don't even know and voted for him anyways. I'm all for advocating for these farmers, but personally, I just need a little more reassurance that the lesson was learned and we're not going to end up back here again. All right? So all the liberals getting on here and telling us to stop being mean to these farmers because we need to win them over in the end. No, these farmers need to win us over in the end. If these farmers want the kind of genuine care for the welfare of working class people that the left holds dear, they need to give it in return.
These farmers need to win us over in the end. Yes, thank you, because the narrative right now is that liberals need to be nicer, more understanding, more sympathetic to voters so we can win them back. But here's my question. What have they done to earn that sympathy? They voted for policies that hurt trans people, immigrants, women, Black Americans, the most marginalized people in this country. They cheered when ICE separated families. They laughed when reproductive rights got stripped away. And now that those same policies are hurting them, we're supposed to drop everything and care? No, empathy isn't infinite, and it shouldn't be one-sided. If these farmers want the left's support, they need to show they've learned something. They need to stop supporting cruelty. They need to take accountability. Until then, they're reaping what they sowed. And honestly, That's fair. Arkansas voters screamed about socialism until they needed bailouts, supported authoritarianism until it targeted them. They'll blame everyone else, liberals, immigrants, China, everyone except themselves. That's the tragedy. Not that they're suffering, but that they're not learning. Drop a comment, hit like, subscribe. This is Mind Mirror. See you next time.